of the dowry, even from the ancient system at all. Then again, in the Vedic period, there are references by saying that, which indicates the kings and the rich, affluent class people gave dowry. And even after the Vedic period, the intercaste marriages were looked down upon, and endogamy was narrowed. And where because when they have narrowed down the endogamy, the choice was very limited uh, for the family members to get a bride or a bridegroom uh, for their members here. So for this reason, maybe for this reason, the choice of the eligible bridegroom was very much limited. And then, according to when we take up this concern here, we have a connotation given by Buchman in 1942. Various factors combined to produce a favorable climate for the child marriage and the dowry system. So there were several factors which have really motivated with the child marriage as well as the dowry system. Uh, then again, the endogamous restrictions became very rigid, and later on, because caste has become so rigid, and we have to practice the endogamy practice in the Indian society, which was also very rigidly practiced in the Indian family members, Hindu family systems. Then again, hypergamy became the accepted form of marriage, and the race for the higher status contributed to the perpetuation of the dowry system. So hypergamy has become the very common form of marriage in the Indian society, where the race for the perpetuation of a higher status was really a perpetuation here in the Indian society, which has really motivated for the dowry system. Then again, dowry payment does not end with marriage. What exactly the form of the dowry we experience or we observe usually in the day life of Hindu in the Indian among the Indian family members. So usually we come across the gifts to be given on the occasion of the marriage. So the gifts constitute of can be the ornaments, and the bride's parents had to incur heavy debts with regard to purchase all these gifts for the to be given in the marriage of the occasion of the daughter's marriage. So they involve in bringing about heavy debts to purchase all these things, and or they may sometimes sell off their property to meet the demands of the eligible bridegroom. So this is one aspect where we need to understand with regard to related to the dowry system. One is like the dowry is something which goes in the form of the contribution, form of the gifts given at the time of the marriage, on the occasion of the marriage, to the bridegroom family and to the bridegroom. So in order to satisfy all the demands, usually or meet all the demands of the bridegroom and the bridegroom family, usually the parents of the girl end up uh, with the heavy debts from the other families, and sometimes they may also sell off the property in order to fulfill all these needs of the bridegroom family. Then this is one aspect where we are understanding the dowry concept. Then later on we come across, in recent years, the dowry demands of the bridegroom have increased to figures beyond the reaches of the bride's parents. So, as we go with selection of the bridegroom, probably if the parents are interested in selecting a very high status boy, or a high status, high eligible candidate, or high what is called higher education person, or maybe the professional person, probably there may be a higher demand for that particular boy or the bridegroom here. So the parents are and ending up into involving themselves into the huge depths in order to fulfill all the needs of the bridegroom here. So which is beyond the unexpected figures, which is really shocking to hear about all these figures and all. So we know it goes beyond some lakhs of rupees, or sometimes the properties, huge properties to be purchased by the girl's family in order to contribute at the time of the marriage occasion and all. Then, apart from the cash, accommodation, car, TV, refrigerator, so all these are the utensils or all the commodities, the products where they are purchasing in order to fulfill the bridegroom's family and all. So, apart from the properties or apart from the cash amount, so these are all common items where the girl's family has to purchase in order to give on the occasion of the marriage of the daughter. So this is definitely, if it is a middle class family, the low income family, definitely they have to end up with a huge debts, and the repayment of the debts goes for some nearly about some a very longer period, some years to be probably it may for some very long period, some years of time it may take in order to come out of all the debts and all, to clear off all the debts. So, like this is an understanding of the dowry. But exactly, is there any provisions or is there any acts which have prohibited the dowry practice in the Indian society? It's like something where we have seen the female foeticides and the female infanticides, and also the Child Marriage Restraint Act and all. So we have stopped all these evil practices like female infants and the child marriage by bringing certain strict acts and prohibiting the practice of all those things. So, do we have any acts which is prohibiting even the dowry practice in Indian system? Of course, we do have the acts and all. So, what are they? Let us examine all the acts and all which prohibiting the dowry practice. So, realizing the gravity of the situation, the government of India has passed Dowry Prohibition Act in 1961 to do away the practice of taking or giving dowry. So even you take the dowry or giving the dowry is considered as a illegal act. So you cannot either motivate by giving, or you cannot either take or accept the dowry from any of the party here. So this is considered as a prohibited act, which is prohibiting this act, and this is considered as a illegal act according to the Government of Act. So this Prohibition of Dowry Act was passed by the Government of India in 1961. Then again, to make such practices an offense. So when you're either accepting or giving means it is you're performing some offense here. So this act becomes an offense act here. Then according to this act, it is illegal to demand in cash and kind from the parents of a girl before or at the time of marriage. So even a boy family or the bridegroom family cannot demand for any of the items here, or neither cash nor any property nor anything else in the form of dowry. So if they are demanding or if they are asking for this, that means you are in an illegal act here. So this becomes this is something where you cannot demand and you are into an offense here. Again, according to the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, the penalty for taking or giving dowry is imprisonment for a term not less than a term which shall not be less than 5 years, and with the fine which shall not be less than 15,000. So if a person either giving, if a person is demanding either giving or taking, so both the parties, the girl's family as well as the boy's family, if they are accepting or if they are willing to give the dowry also, that means they are performing, they are into the illegal act, and which is going to be ended up with imprisonment not less than 5 years, and at the same time a penalty a penalty not less than 15,000. Then again, we come across what is called the act was modified. So this was the first initiation taken up by the Government of India in 1961 in order to prohibit the dowry. So the Prohibition of Dowry Act in 1961 was the first act which was brought by the Government of India. Then later it was modified by the government by changing the term by saying that Dowry Prohibition Amendment Act of 1984. So now there was an amendment with regard to this Prohibition Act, Dowry Prohibition Amendment Act of 1984 and also 1986. So it was amended in 1984 once, and later on it was again amended in 1986. Within 2 years term, it was again amended in 1986. So the new bill empowers any recognized welfare institution or organization to take up a woman's case in a law firm. That means it's not that directly they can approach. It's not that only the suffering families are has to reach the court or go for the complaining and all, but it has been handed over to the women's organization. So where any institution which is thinking about the women welfare activities and all, so recognized recognized welfare institution or organization, any organization which is recognized by the government or any institution which is recognized by the government can take up a women's case in a law court. So they can hand over the case of women which is in the dowry case, and they can hand it over to the court and all. So it may not be a personal approach to the court, but later it was modified in such a way that even a recognized institution, welfare institution, or an organization can take up if if they come to know that there's some dowry case is happening or some dowry act is going on, or the receiving or taking of acceptance of the case is going, acceptance of the dowry is taking place. So they can catch hold of that and they can take it to the court of the house. Then again, even after 50 years of independence, is there any amendment? Is there any modification? Let us know that. Fine. Even after independence here, after 50 years or 75 years of the independence period here, the custom still persists in India. And due to the spread of media, so even today, once upon a time, we used to think that it is only existing in the rural areas, or it is existing among only the rich class families and all, or it is only among the affluent families where they have the economic sound position, and they are very much ready to give much of the ornaments, so much of the properties to the daughters, because they pamper the daughter in such a way that they want to give everything in the form of showing love and affection to the daughter in the form of the dowry. But it is not confined to only those families of the affluent or the rich families, but it has spread over to all the community members, to all the class sections of the Indian society. So it's not just rich class, but even the middle class, the lower middle class, even among the poor class families also, according to their economic conditions, they are able to give some or the other form of dowry to the daughters on the occasion of the marriage. So it is spreading over, and it has spread over to all sections and all communities of the Indian society. Then later on, what are the exactly from like what is the root cause? So let us understand why there is dowry system, and what are the causative factors which is really motivating this kind of ill practice and evil practice in the Indian society. So there are certain various reasons we have. So in order to eradicate, so one is like hypergamy system, one is the endogamy rule of the caste system probably maybe, and one is like in order to show the love and affection, maybe they try to give some gifts to the daughters and all, so it can be considered some aspect of the Stridhan, which has taken the form of the dowry. So all this can be understood as various factors which have motivated for the dowry system. Then later on, when we talk about what is called maybe those are the few reasons. We have not all the reasons here, but later on, what are the measures undertaken in order to eradicate the dowry system? So when the government has introduced with all the acts, and the act was again amended two times, and later on we have a new acts also. So, but what are the measures taken by the government in order to eradicate it in generally, other than the act and all? What is the other way side where they have working with the dowry system to eradicate totally from the root cause of the Indian system? So here the measures taken to eradicate this evil, the social evil, is that one is compulsory registration of the marriages. So usually when we talk about the traditional India and even in the modern Indian society, uh, the registration of the marriages is not compulsory in the Indian system or the Indian family system. So whenever there happens a marriage, when there occurs a marriage in the family system, it's not essential that they need to go to the registration court, and they need to register the marriage of that particular couple here. It is not compulsory rule in the Indian system, but it has now they have made it compulsory that any marriage occurs at any time among all the communities, they need to go it for registration. So they have to compulsorily register the marriage here. Then again, education of girls both in rural and urban areas. When you're educating your girl, that means she is into the economic system. She will be questioning. She is aware of all the things. So probably maybe an educated girl becomes on par and equally occupying the status on par with the man here. So definitely this may to some extent, when you're educating a girl, it means something, you're giving a knowledge to the girl. She becomes very well aware. She is conscious of women, and later on she may question like either giving or taking of the dowry. So this can end up with in some form eradicating the evil practice of the dowry system. Then employment opportunities of the girls. Yes, of course. Because till now, what we consider is women are the subjugated category, and women always are subordinated members in the family. So even in the societal system, they were considered as the second-grade citizens. So because of their subordinate, subjugated status and the position, and they were confined with certain role plays, which is confined, which is also reflecting the subjugated status system. maybe probably because of this, and not only this, patriarchy always made them as a dependent persons. So they were considered by the patriarchal system that they are the dependent members in the family. So they are dependent since the birth till the death among the all the members, male members of the family. So as I said in one of my class that women are, when she takes the birth, she has to depend on the father of the family, and later on at the later on after getting married, she depends on the husband, and afterwards in the old age she depends on the sons and all. So this is how throughout her lifespan she is depending on some or the other male person, and this subjugation, subordination position, the dependency nature of the women, and the patriarchal system on the other side, all this is making them not to enter into the economic system, and it is not giving a chance for them or the liberty to enter into the earning system. So productive system, and the productive system of course is there, but earning system is not made compulsory for them. So later on the government has made it that yes, let them enjoy all the jobs in the society, any either a private firm or the government firm, or any of the other business or any organization, let her get the job opportunity. So women employment opportunities were provided by the government, and I think we also have reservations for the women in some government, state government and all. So this has really made, even the parliament has made 33% of the reservations for the women in the house of the people here. So this is something where you are attracting the women to come out of the family. You are attracting or giving a chance for the women to enjoy the liberty. Let her open up her mouth and let her open up the ideas to the society, and let her develop progress herself. Then there must be a personality development for the women with giving all these opportunities. So all these chances and the opportunities are only to make her economically independent. When she becomes economically independent, definitely she has her own earnings, and definitely she is going to support the family system. And when this supportive system is there, financial supportive, economic supportive system is there from the women's side, definitely the bridegroom may not demand for any of the dowry system. So this is the notion of understanding where we can stop, at least to some extent, or to the fullest extent, when women are given the economic liberty by providing them the job opportunities in the society. So this is the notion where we are able to give certain opportunities for women in the society, in the government firms and the other firms also, the employment opportunities. Later on, educate the masses about the evils of the dowry. Yes, of course, these programs are always going on. Why? Because we want to educate the family members, we want to educate in general the society members, where they let them understand what exactly the what is called the damage going on to the women folk in the society in the form of the dowry system. So what exactly the result, the consequences of the dowry ending up with either dowry deaths, or ending up with the brutal killing of the girl child, brutal killing of the women in the family, among the family members, by the family members. Also probably sometimes you find that the burning of the women. So any form of the death is happening because of the dowry practice in the Indian society, and this should be given as a general mass education in the world, I mean in the Indian society, among all the members, remotest areas, even illiterate, literate, every man, every person should get to know that the consequences of the women dowry deaths, and the evil practice of the dowry towards the women here. Then again, we have social boycott of those who give or take dowry. So probably I think we are not yet up to this mark of this, where this point actually ends up with. There should be social boycott for the families who is giving or accepting the dowry system. So usually we understand this point as like it's only a compromise between the two families of the boy and the girl, and it's not a demand from the boy side, but usually they end up by giving this kind of explanations when they are giving or either accepting the dowry system. But then never the families in the Indian society has boycotted the families who are either giving or taking the dowry. Fine. So this can be implemented, but this is not so happening in the Indian society. Right. So I think this is the notion where we can, at least to some extent, in the fear of social boycott, definitely, I think in the fear of social boycott, the families may either stop giving or either stop accepting the dowry from the family members. Uh, Strict disciplinary action to be taken by government servants who demand or receive dowry. So the persons who are working in the government firms, who are working in the government employment, they if those families, the government employees of their families if either they are accepting or if they are giving the dowry for their family members, definitely a strict disciplinary action has to be taken upon those employees who are either accepting or giving the dowry system, so that at least to some extent their general mental attitude, their attitude will change towards the dowry system. And if one section is stopping with giving or taking the dowry, definitely this will show a great impact on the other family members also, the other sections of the community. Probably this may work out in a very longer way, and definitely we find that we will end up with the dowry practice in the Indian society. This is one issue we have. The next issue what we have is the rape. The rape, yes. The other issue what we have is the rape. What is rape? Exactly, this is where we have uh, mm, the highest dominating number uh, ending up with this issue towards the women here. It is a term which is used in one form of exploitation of the women. So we use this word term as one form of exploitation against the women. So it is a form of exploit. You are exploiting the women in the form of rape. Then it is forcible crime committed. How do we understand this particular term called rape? This is understood as a forcible crime. Sorry, a forcible crime committed on a forcible crime. This is a crime. This act is considered as a crime committed on a woman by men to express the male chauvinism or domination. I repeat once again the definition. The term is defined as, the term rape is defined as a forcible crime. So we consider this act as a crime here and committed on the women by men in order to show the chauvinism or the domination here. So according to Oxford Dictionary also, it defines the word as the forcible or fraudulent sexual intercourse imposed on women here. So it's a forcible intercourse done on the women here, imposed on women. So here, under Section 375 of the Indian Penal Code, under Section 375 of the Indian Penal Code, it defines as a man is said to commit rape when who has sexual intercourse with a woman under circumstances falling under any of the following 6 descriptions. What are those descriptions? When a man is performing this illegal act on a woman here, a forcible act on women, so that it describes certain prescriptions here. So the descriptions what we have is, under these circumstances, usually we consider it as illegal act against her will. When she's not accepting this act, then this becomes a crime. Then without her consent, when you're not taking the permission from the women or the consent or the acceptance of the women, then this becomes an illegal act. With her consent, when it has been obtained by putting her or any person in whom she is interested in fear of death or fraud. When you're uh, uh, fearing her, when you're showing the fear of the death, then when under this fear she may accept this, even this considered as a crime of that particular act. It is a crime at even that this particular circumstances. Then with her consent, when he or by deception makes her believe that he is a lawful husband. So even when with her consent, but by showing that she believes that he is her lawful husband, but he may not be. He may not be, but he shows that he is a lawful husband. Then, with her consent, given on account soundness of the mind intoxicated. When the woman is intoxicated and this act is performed on this woman on the intoxicated when she is unconscious status, then when the act is performed on the woman, then this is also considered as a crime. Then with or without her consent when she is below 16 years of age. When you are performing this act on the women who is below 16 years, that is the young girls under the adolescent age group and below 16 years, when you are performing this act on these women folk here, even this is considered as a crime. Now, here we have, how do we relate this particular act as far as Indian scenario is concerned? We consider this act is related to the association of masculinity and power, dominance and toughness, dominance, masculinity and power. The showing the masculinity and uh, and showing the masculinity in the form of this power on by performing this act here. The second one is dominance and toughness, and it is not for most of the part of the result of sexual desire, but the ties between sexuality and feelings of power and superiority. It's only sometimes the act is ending up only by in order to show the superiority, to show the feelings of the power and the superiority on the women here. So only it's not the with regard to the pleasure or the desire here, but in order to only show off the superiority and the power of the women here. So this act is being forcibly done on the women, which is a crime. Then again, we come across what are the effects of the act on the women here, on the victim of the act. Usually, what are the effects we have? Children are prone to the effects or the results of this act done on a woman. Usually, ends up with certain things here, and these are children are prone to a variety of psychological and behavioral disturbances if any crime is done on the women or the young age girls here, they end up with the psychological and behavioral disturbances. Then these include bedwetting. These are the forms of psychological and behavioral disturbances. What are the forms here? The forms says that they include the bedwetting, the nightmares, and also the sleep disorders, the depression, nervousness, anxiety, sadness, anger, helplessness, hatred, fear, distrust. So these are the many forms, the various forms, variety of forms we have when there occurs the disturbance psychologically and behaviorally when this particular act is being forcefully performed or done on the women here. So both behavioral disturbance occurs, psychological disturbance occurs. You can observe them, you can identify through these forms here. Either it can be a bedwetting, it can be a fear, it can be the nightmares, the sleep disorders, maybe depression. The women enter into the depression. Sometimes it's nervousness and the anxiety shown by the person, the victim, and the sadness among the victim persons, and also the anger, the helplessness. All these forms, and it's not compulsory that all everything should be present among the victims here. Some or the other form will be present among the victims here. Then the second effect it shows is that a victim's psychological state includes embarrassment, disgust, depression, guilt, and even suicidal tendencies. So we can also identify among the victim enters into a psychological state. A victim enters into a psychological state includes the embarrassment. She feels so embarrassed to come before any person, to talk with the any person, and then disgusted with the family members or with the other members or the peer group members, or sometimes she enters into the depression levels and she may not, she stops talking, she stops involving herself into any of the act in the family, or she stops eating food sometimes. So all this happens with the victim here. Then guilt and even suicidal tendencies. So she may attempt even the suicide attempt here. So she ends up sometimes the attempt may, if it is successful, then she ends up with the death, or sometimes she only attempts for the suicidal. So the suicidal tendencies also develops among these the victims of this act. Then, apart from physical injury and psychological trauma, there is the other problem of the unwanted pregnancy. The victims may also result with the effect also shown in the form of the unwanted pregnancies. Then the some children become delinquents. Some of these children become the delinquents. So they just roam here and they roam about in the society, on the roadsides. They're left by the family members. Sometimes they're ignored by the family members. So they don't attend the school. So they're not into the family system. All this happens and they become delinquents. So since these are the very dangerous results or the consequences of this act we are observing in the among the societal members. Then the stigma and social ostracism of the victim and their families. Of course, definitely this is one of the major issues we have in the Indian society, where the family members end up or the victim ends up with a social stigma forever and ever here. It's not a one particular time of a point of time, but it continues forever in her lifetime. Also for the family, even the family members have to face this social stigma by the societal member, their neighborhood families, or by their own kin members and all. And like this is one of the very very embarrassing situation for any of the families in the society for as far as the victim families are concerned. So these are the effects we come across with regard to this particular act called the rape here. Then, what are the legal provisions against the rape? So we come across section 376 states that we have a section called 376, section number 376, which states that whoever commits the act shall be punished with imprisonment for life or with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 7 years. So either it will be life imprisonment or not less than 7 years. So this is a very strict imprisonment we come across if a person is committing this particular crime. Then under 376 section, then the Criminal Law Amendment Act in 1983. The act has been again amended in 1983, which aims at providing legal protection to women who are subject to sexual assault. So whoever is are the victim members here, the victim women are going to be provided the legal protection by the government. So there is a legal provision. This was amended act of the criminal law here. Then it contains provisions prohibiting publicity and conducting then proceedings of the courts in such cases in camera. So they are not exposed to the big society members here. So they are secluded here, and at the same time, the proceedings are not done before the cameras. So they have that particular security given by the government and the court in order to maintain the privacy of these particular proceedings in the court and all. Then again, the Act also introduced categories of offense of sexual intercourse by persons who takes advantage of official positions in custodial situations, such as superintendent of demand homes and hospitals, a police officer, or a public servant. So, any situation of the custodial rape, if the victim gives evidence that she did not consent, the court will assume that she did not consent. Then, what are the preventive measures we have? How do we abolish all these kind of evil practices? So we have seen certain preventive measures for the dowry, child marriages, etc. So also for this particular issue, we have certain preventive measures. The sex education should be made compulsory. So for all the school students, for all the college students, we are now presently. I think the modern society has accepted that there should be a sex education among all the syllabi content here. So we have made it compulsory now. Then pornographic literature, films depicting the crime, sexual violence against women should be banned. So the films which shows or the literature which talks about or the films which shows the crime and the sexual violation should be banned here. So we need not give the accept. The government probably may not accept all such kind of things which has to come into the public here. So they stop coming into the public. Severe punishment should be given to persons who rape women and girls. So definitely, of course, this is the very criminal law. So definitely, the criminal under the criminal law, there are severe punishments. Definitely, I think the life imprisonment is a severe punishment for them because they lose the whole life, the overall life in the imprisonment itself. Otherwise, when we have seen the Nirbhaya case, we come across after a very long period of I think nearly 7-8 years of the proceedings and all, they have ended up with the case by hanging the persons who have committed this crime. So that's a severe punishment we can say, but it has taken much time for the punishment to be implemented. Then, guidance and counseling centers should be set up in all the cities, towns, etc. So, of course, this is the responsibility of the government to set up certain counseling centers, guidance cells where they can go for the youngsters, the adolescents, or for the boys and the young boys and the girls, where they can give the guidance or counseling with regard to the special acts and all, or the crimes, this particular criminal act and all this can be counseled by the counseling centers where this has to be set up by the government. Or even I think the NGO has taken the civic public responsibility among the NGOs is there. So they have taken up all such, some of the NGOs are working towards all these things also. They are also protecting the victims who are the victim women, and they are also, I think, resettling them in the mainstream of the life. The negative attitude towards the victims of the rape should be changed. So when you find a victim person, definitely we should welcome them by giving them the new life. So, but instead of this, it so happens that most of the traditional thought process of the people makes them that they have that the negative attitude towards that particular person and all. So, instead, it's better not to develop the negative attitude. Better go with accepting and let them. Give a space for them so that they can change themselves, their attitude, also they can change their life pattern and all, and lead a new life in the system. This has to be developed among all the individuals in the society, the common man in the society. Negative attitudes of parents and society towards girl children should be changed. Definitely the girl's child should be the attitude towards the girl child, the negative thought process towards the girl child. Definitely, this has to be drastically changed among the family members towards the girl. Then, anti-rape women's group should be set up in all the cities to draw media attention, assist victims, launch prosecutions. So this has to be done by the government initiation, where they can set up the media attention towards this particular instance and all, and also assist the victims, also launch prosecutions. So this has to be done very strictly in order to stop all this kind of uh, evil practices in the society. Then we come across the widowhood and sati. So sati, of course, it is not prevalent presently, but actually, in order to understand the sati practice, let us go back to the history of the Indian society, where we come across the practice of sati was very severely. It was a norm of the day at that time. So usually, most of the upper varna communities they practiced the sati practice and all, the sati sagamana and all. First of all, let us understand what is this widowhood and sati. In the days when the child marriages were in vogue, so earlier system in the Indian society, traditionally, when you just look back 40, 50 years of the Indian society, we had the practice of the early child marriages and all. And this, when this was in practice, the custom of Kanya Shulkam, dowry, parents married off their daughters to an old man, so that the age group of the girl, that is the girl who is going to get married, and the boy who is coming in the form of the husband who's going to get married, this girl here, it's a lot of age gap we find here. So she is to get married to a very old man in order to avoid the dowry, the Kanya Shulkam. So, in order to avoid the dowry practice and all, so the daughters were married to old man without taking the consent of the, because girl is very young and she has no thought process and she has no interest of her, so she was not given the consent of whom to get married here. So she's been given in marriage to an old man. Then, in some cases, the product of the child marriage was the child widow. So this, in this kind of cases, the child used to become widow at a very early age. So this was, we had many case studies in the Indian society where at a very young age girl used to get become a widow. And the status of the Hindu widow, as we know, that she has to lead a seclusion life. She should not attend any occasions, the functions in the family, or in, she should not show her faces. All these certain restrictions were there imposed on the widows in the family system, in the social family, in the family systems. So misfortune, if treated as widows were treated as the symbols of misfortune, and sight of them was considered as a bad omen. When she comes before, when a person is going out on some work, so when she faces this person, definitely it is considered as a bad omen. So she should not come before the person. The face need not to be open up for all the members in the family. All this practice were there because they were considered as a misfortune. She should not participate in the festivals, marriages, or any auspicious occasions in the family, or decorate herself, or wear the jewelry or the ornaments, or the colorful clothing and all, and flowers, bangles, all use cosmetics. So that is like she should not decorate herself. All the colorful things she should not get. So she has no right from now onwards, right? So she should not think about herself. She should not uh, look good. Actually, this is the motive behind all these things, stopping or giving all these things here. Then, among the Brahmins, the widows had to tonsure their hair. So they should not keep hair on the head. They need to tonsure the hair here. So hair, and wear only white clothes, the white sari. So not only restrictions on appearance but also on eating habits were prescribed. There were the prescriptions given for the eating habits for the widows also. So widows had to eat bland diets only, vegetarian food without garlic, masalas, onions, fish, and meat were restricted. So she should her dietary schedule should not had totally avoided with all these things, garlic or the masalas or the fish or the meat or anything which is spicy and the non-vegetarian, which was totally prohibited for the widows in the families. Then they had to fast regularly and had to sleep on the floor or mat or pusa grass and lead a secluded life. So she was given a separate room where she is going to have a secluded life, and she used to sleep only on the floor, no comforts for the widow life. Then, according to Manu has prescribed certain things for a widow. Manu says that widow should until her death. This is according to Manu Dharma Shastra. Manu has written this. Manu says that he prescribed that widow should until her death let her be patient of hardships and self-control and chaste and strive to fulfill the most excellent duty which is prescribed for wives who have one husband only. So because Hindu system practice monogamy and accordingly he prescribed certain things for the widows also, he says until her death, let her be patient of hardships. So she should develop that patience nature in herself for all the hardships she is going to face as a widowhood. Okay, then self-control. She has to be control herself. She has to control on herself and chaste and strive to fulfill the most excellent duty which is prescribed for wives we who have only one husband. So she has to perform all the duties which is been prescribed as a wife in the family. Then, at her pleasure, let her initiate her body by living on the roots and fruits. So he also prescribes the dietary things to widows, where he said, let her live her life by eating only the roots and the fruits. And also, she should never mention the name of another man after her husband. So after the first as the after the husband dies, then the widow should have no right to even spell the name or also the name of other man here. She has no right to name the other person's name there. So these are certain restrictions and these are the prescriptions given in the Dharma Shastras. So I've just quoted the Manu Dharma Shastra according to Manu, how she should lead her life. So these are very strict prohibitions we had and the prescriptions we had to lead a widow life in the Indian Hindu family system. Then reasons why there is the sati. Like in Rajasthan, most of the time, most of these parts, they used to go for the practice of the sati sagamana, where we know that the young bride used to, the young wife, aged around 15, 16 years, when the husband dies. So she has to sit on the pyre of the husband and she has to succumb to the burns and dies. So this is actually the practice of sati sagamana because she cannot lead her life after the death of the husband. She has no right to lead the life after the death of the husband. So this is exactly the understanding of the sati sargamana, the practice of sati. When we talk about uh, Manusmriti prescribes penance for widows, hence, many women move to the religious pilgrimage spots like Varanasi, Rishikesh, Gaya. So he prescribes that a woman who is into the widowhood, she has to go for the penance. So making herself seclusion and also going for the penance, practice of the penance. So leaving the family, going into all the attending the moksha, she can go to the pilgrimage centers. She can go on until death for the pilgrimage process and all. Then later in Rajasthan, when we talk about the sati, in Rajasthan, widow commits sati in order to avoid inhuman suffering at the hands of their relatives. So widow who become a woman who becomes a widow in Rajasthan, she commits a sati in order to avoid human sufferings at the hands of their relatives. So in order to avoid the sufferings from their own family members, this widow would also commit sati. It's not only the young bride, but at the same time, the young wife of a person. But at the same time, even the girl, after becoming the widow, she used to perform sati. She goes to attain the sati in order to avoid all the sufferings of the family members, her own family members. Then it so happens that the most significant in the effective initiation towards abolition of sati began in Calcutta. So with the publication of the Bengal pamphlets, then again we have all the members who really strive hard to totally abolish this system. But what were the reasons for committing the sati? Why women went into practicing the sati? So why people have forced to for the practice of the sati? The economic factors, religious pressures, education, male chauvinism. Male domination is one reason for the practice of the sati. Education, because there was totally illiteracy among the widow and the family members. So they used to have that kind of religious thought process, religious notion for giving explanation for the sati and all. So they feel it's as a pride, or sometimes they will be blessed with if the young widow is going for the sati and all. So this is the reason why they went for the practice of sati. Then, I think now it's time up. So let us continue the lesson tomorrow. So I end up with this topic today. Hope you all followed what we have studied today. So thank you all for today. So we'll meet tomorrow at the same time for the next class. Thank you all.